A host of inspirational leaders devoted to developing their countries and promoting prosperity can be found across the African continent. Among them, individuals like Ibrahim Traoré have become icons of creation, working to raise the standard of living for their people via freedom of choice and environmentally friendly development. But an alarming pattern has emerged, suggesting a covert underworld of Western resistance to leaders who rejected the conventional wisdom about being manipulated by other forces. These African leaders are in the middle of a well-publicized campaign meant to topple their authority, despite the fact that their supporters applaud them for their dedication to national sovereignty and independence. Western powers use a variety of strategies, from criticism and misinformation to more nefarious plans, since they are uncomfortable with leadership who put their country's interests ahead of complying with foreign agendas. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has detached himself from France and other Western nations ever since he took office in Burkina Faso in 2022. Traoré's efforts to free his nation from Western prey and gain complete independence have been met with disapproval from the West. Former French colony Burkina Faso had long relied on French military assistance in battling its enemies, but following numerous failed attempts by coups to overthrow him, Captain Traoré decided to cut all connections with France, which had been viewed as a colonial authority that was unable to control radicals. As the world's youngest president at 35, Traoré is working on building Burkina Faso's first gold refinery. He has put in countless hours safeguarding Burkina Faso from outside threats. During his term, he has given priority to national development efforts rather than solely complying with Western interests. In order to assist Burkina Faso overcome suffering and achieve true independence, he believes that the West might need to be pressured to pay fair market prices for these precious resources. As we all know, this is not what the West wants. They wish to maintain control over Burkina Faso and carry on enforcing its regulations. It was obviously controlled by the US, the UK, and France to crush the democratic breeze sweeping throughout Africa. A great number of Pan-Africanists, including Patrice Lumumba, Gaddafi, and Thomas Sankara, fell in murder as a result of their struggle for the continent's independence from the rule of colonialism. Their primary goals were to enable Africa's socio-political and economic systems to operate independently of Western influence. They were frequently assaulted, and their behavior and beliefs were a serious threat to Western power. Regarding the same issue, the West is now leading Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré is carrying on the legacy of the past, Thomas Sankara, the Marxist revolutionary who tirelessly struggled for Burkina Faso's independence during the 1980s. In spite of a tight security situation, the locals are quite optimistic about the new president, Traoré's arrival. In addition to strengthening relationships with local groups and pursuing diplomatic initiatives to deal with the underlying causes of instability, he has aggressively pursued international assistance. However, today's African leaders are opposing and driving out the Western powers, challenging their rule over the continent as a whole. Presidents who have made promises to carry out the actions that cost the lives of previous presidents include President Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré projected strength as president by keeping a formal manner and tightly regulating communication. In February 2023, he declared his desire for a variety of international alliances and withdrew the French military. For how long will they ignore bright future leaders in Africa? Following his inauguration, Ibrahim Traoré, a youthful leader, took steps to remove all French military from Burkina Faso under claims of promoting insecurity and promoting terrorism. In addition, he has taken action to remove numerous Western influences from his nation. As an example, he turned local languages into the official language and eliminated French. From 2023 till the present, Traoré has escaped 7 unsuccessful attempts to harm his life. Also, he has found out that the individuals and activists in the nation who were taking part were rumored to have accepted funding for the plan to destroy Burkina Faso. The nation's intelligence and security forces are in charge of controlling attempted coups within the nation, which are a reflection of unsuccessful Western plots. As part of a long-term plan to bring the neighbors of West Africa together under one federation, the leader has attempted to create a coalition with Mali and Niger. These nations' military officials inked a defense. A few pro-French media outlets in Burkina Faso were put on hold for attempting to damage the reputation of the military government in power. France, on the other hand, is unwilling to leave Burkina Faso on its own. Remember, during Traoré's leadership, there has also been a rise in violence. Top UN official Barbara Manzi was asked to leave the country immediately by Traoré. Even though the law demanding she leave gave no explanation, Foreign Minister Olivier Rwamba stated on state television that Manzi had voiced concerns about security in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, without offering any proof to support her claim. The U.S. Department expressed concern last year about steps taken by the Armed Forces government of Burkina Faso, including the increasing use of specific force conscriptions, the reduction of civic space, and limitation on political parties. It continued by stating that these acts together have the impact of silencing people who are advocating for democratic rule on behalf of their nation. There are numerous proven instances of Burkinabe individuals being abducted and persuaded into joining Western nations opposing their native country. Burkina Faso is one of several West African countries wherein the military has taken over power. The security commitment made by the ruler has been welcomed enthusiastically by many Burkinabes. There are Russian flags flying on many of the capital streets, along with banners bearing phrases. Although the West claims that violence will just make people feel worse and encourage them to join terrorist organizations, Ibrahim Traoré could potentially be the driving force of violence if it is necessary for the benefit of his people. As many could easily understand, their ultimate purpose is to damage Traoré's reputation. Traoré is a strong leader who knows exactly what his responsibilities are. Amidst troubled ties with France, Traoré pointed out in an interview with the media that his nation, Burkina Faso, is not a rival of the French people, but instead the policies they hold to. With Captain Traoré seizing control in September 2022, France faced growing opposition and withdrew troops from its former possessions. Burkina Faso's military capabilities have significantly improved as a result of receiving the first shipment of the most advanced weapons under its new strategic weapons plan. This is a great development. President Captain joined over the unveiling of the recently acquired arsenal on January 12th. He spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin about cooperation and development during the July 2023 Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. The government's persistent pursuit of a foreign partnership with Russia has given rise to rumors that the Wagner Group, supported by the Kremlin, may begin operations in the nation. He has even begun constructing a nuclear power plant with Russia. In addition to his close ties with Putin, Ibrahim Traoré is a great leader that no one wants to deal with. Russia is going to punish everyone who tries to bring Traoré down. He thinks highly of Burkina Faso's progress. Even the other African leaders have faced attacks from the West all through the years for the reason that they refuse Western identities and traditions, including the presidents of Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. Nationalistic positions that aim to lessen dependency on foreign help, particularly Western assistance, define their political objectives. President Ibrahim's military government, in contrast, has expanded its network of foreign allies, establishing ties with Venezuela, Iran, and Russia. Africans have the main responsibility to stand up for Traoré's objectives on their continent and do everything in their power to recognize and communicate with any traitors who may be among them. Not only Captain Ibrahim Traoré, but also there are many African leaders that have taken steps to limit Western influence in their country. William Ruto. Since September 13, 2022, politician William Kipchirchir Samoei Arap Ruto has led Kenya as its president. Kenya's fifth president, William Ruto, came to his position with an abundance of political knowledge that influenced his ascent to the presidency. Ruto's expertise in politics and well-placed connections helped him win the presidency. He served in the past as President Uhuru Kenyatta's deputy president. President Ruto emphasized that African leaders are chosen by their people and should be treated with the same respect as presidents from other countries of the world during his speech at the April 2023 IGW African Leadership Ceremony with Mo Ibrahim. He noted how, despite attending the US-Africa Summit, 50 African leaders were unable to have one-on-one meetings with President Biden. Such arrangements, according to President Ruto, are unfair since they require African leaders to go across the globe to meet with the leader of a single nation. On some of these travels, he also complained about how African leaders were treated like children. Ruto has experienced criticism and insults in Western newspapers, despite his advocacy for a more egalitarian approach to global diplomacy. This highlights the difficulties African leaders encounter when questioning established power relations. Yoweri Museveni. Since 1986, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni Tibuhaburwa, a military officer, politician, and communist from Uganda, has held the office of the 9th president of that country. President Yoweri Museveni signed a bill banning homosexual conduct into law in May 2023. The 9th president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, is well known for his humor and candidness, as well as his unwavering defiance of Western authority. He has rightfully become a leading figure in Africa's opposition to the LGBTQ agenda of the West, demonstrating his unwavering commitment to preserving Uganda's social and cultural norms. Although the anti-LGBTQ law was passed in May, it has received harsh criticism from Western countries, both national and international human rights organizations, and even the public at large. The World Bank, Uganda's largest budget supporter for a long time, stopped funding the country in August following this law became law, citing the country's anti-LGBTQ legislation as being inconsistent with its principles. In a statement, Museveni declared that Uganda was making every effort to lower borrowing and would not bow to pressure from overseas organizations. Therefore, it is regrettable that the World Bank and other players have the audacity to attempt to use financial pressure to force us to give up our beliefs, customs, values, and sovereignty. He claimed that they understood all Africans. Museveni said Uganda could borrow money from other places if necessary, and that all of the output that is anticipated to begin by 2025 will bring inside extra money. Colonel Goita, the current military commander of Mali, Colonel Assimi Goita, came to power in 2020 and is known for his practical and results-driven style of leadership. Goita has shown a strong dedication to protecting Mali's sovereignty while minimizing the influence of outside countries, especially France, but not being as vocal as some other African leaders. Goita took an enormous risk in November 2022 when it outlawed the operations of Mali and non-governmental organizations which are NGOs with French support. Furthermore, Goita made the brave choice to drive out the French military from Mali when they were unable to help put an end to the rebellions, signifying a decisive departure from the perceived reliance on outside assistance. Goita also took action against French media sites that he believed to be reporting incorrect information, such as France 24 and RFI. These actions were an important part of his larger plan to break France's hold on Mali and help the country develop a feeling of independence. Naturally, Goita's actions have not won over the French government, and as a consequence, he is not given a positive image in the French media. Goita and France's conflict highlights the complex nature of post-colonial interactions and the continuing fight by African countries to declare their autonomy from former colonial powers. Moving on, Ado Akufo. Ado Akufo, the 79-year-old Nana Addo Dankwa, Akufo-Addo has served as Ghana's president since 2017. His continuous dedication to leadership positions and public service has been characterized by an ongoing dedication to furthering Ghana's interests internationally. He previously served as Attorney General from 2001 to 2003 and Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2003 to 2007 in the Q4-led cabinet. President Akufo-Addo continues to fight against the forced acceptance of LGBTQ people in African nations. He consistently argues that legalizing LGBTQ people is not a top priority for Ghana and that he will never allow it to happen while he is president. He is determined to uphold Ghanaian culture and values, and he is not going to cave to pressure from the West. He is devoted to maintaining his African identity. Felix Tshisekedi. Since January 24, 2019, Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, a politician from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, has served as the country's president. President Félix has no problem expressing his opinions aloud. He confronted the prideful actions of Europe towards Africa by standing up to French President Emmanuel Macron. He encouraged Europe, and especially France, to reconsider its arrogant stance towards African nations. The president stated that our perspective on events in Africa has to shift in our interactions with France in particular and the West in general. He spoke at a press conference alongside French President Emmanuel Macron, who was visiting Central Africa. During the summit, Félix addressed Macron and emphasized the value of respect between the European Union and African nations. Félix emphasized that the president had discussed with France to view African nations as partners rather than as subjects of superiority. Many nations have agreed with Félix's comments, criticizing France's stance and neo-colonialist strategy. These are only a handful of African leaders who courageously challenge the West and its media outlets. Next up, Paul Kagame. Since entering office, Kagame, who is the dynamic leader of Rwanda, has established his transformational leadership style with a strong combination of political and military experience. Former military officer Kagame was instrumental in ending the Rwandan genocide in 1994. He then rose to positions of political leadership, acting as vice president, minister of defense, and eventually president. Rwanda has been rebuilt and upgraded with unchangeable dedication under Kagame's leadership. He has received praise from his own country, as well as abroad, for overseeing the nation's significant economic growth, infrastructure advancement, and social advancement. Since 2000, Paul Kagame, a politician and retired military officer from London, has served as Rwanda's president 4 times. After criticism from the US and other countries for eliminating term limits early in order to prolong his rule, Rwanda's president announced that he was going to run for a 4th term in office the following year, stating he does not care what the West thinks about his decision. He has frequently confronted Western journalists and bloggers over their condescending attitudes, which has led many to characterize him as conceited. One of his perspectives on the West with respect to him was outlined in the inaugural address he gave in 2009. He claimed that poverty and the dependency that results from underdevelopment are Africa's true problems, not the absence of democracy. This circumstance gives certain governments and even non-governmental organizations that answer only to themselves the impression that they are entitled to control how lawful state actors behave. President Kagame has frequently voiced his dissatisfaction with the way the world views the use of foreign aid as leverage in politics in Africa. In conclusion, the West, and especially Western countries, have long engaged in global power struggles and geopolitical machinations. Prominent in his native nation, Ibrahim Traoré has come under attack from the West. For sure, he will be one of the strong leaders to win all the attacks from the West. The West will no longer dictate what is good or bad for Africa. Do you believe that Traoré's reputation will be damaged by the West? Do you think we missed any brave African leaders who are frequently the focus of strong remarks from the West and other darker schemes? As always, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Now that brings us to the end of this video. Let's meet again with another interesting video.